mean by disability, and why is the definition so important? The World Health Organization, through the International Classification of Functioning, Disability and Health, defines disability. A person may have an impairment, whether physiological, sensory, psychological or cognitive. The ICF asks, how does this person with this impairment perform their daily activities such as dressing, eating, working, travelling? This interaction between the impairment and daily activities then dictates how a person will function in society. For a person with intellectual disability, this may affect how they learn, communicate, move, look after themselves and how they interact in their social and family domains. The first World Report on Disability, issued by the World Health Organization in 2011, discusses the barriers commonly faced by people with disabilities around the world. We understand that poverty, gender, where a person lives, their ethnicity, and if they are living in a war zone, all of these create barriers for people in general. Add to this a person's access to transport, safe housing, education and work, and the picture becomes more complex. Access to a service or to support is not just about physical access, such as a ramp, but it's also about cultural or information access. For example, if a person with intellectual disability cannot read, then if they are given written information, it won't be very useful. Barriers can be structural, such as whether a country's legal system incorporates protection of basic human rights for vulnerable people. Universal healthcare is a good starting point for vulnerable people because costly health services can prevent access and thus produce health inequities. Because of the information barrier, people with intellectual disability may not even know about the existence of a health or support service. Communication barriers certainly include the person's communication impairment and lack of recall, but those barriers also include how service providers value the individual with intellectual disability. We are all defined by the resources we have. If we have less resources such as education, work opportunities and living outside metropolitan centres, then life is more difficult. The barriers they face are multiple and compounded, and so the world they live in can be considered a disabling environment. We know that over time, every society has segregated people who are different. Societal fear of difference led to the murder of many people with disability in World War II. This fear of difference also led to the mass sterilisation of people with intellectual disability in countries like the USA and Australia until very recently. Post-World War II, there was a change in thinking around the world. The United Nations was born and the notion of human rights and freedoms started to enter the conversation. International conventions to protect rights were developed and nation-states signed up to these conventions and embedded rights in national laws. For people with disability, new movements based on rights began. Normalisation theory revolves around making all people with disability live as regular a life as possible. People living in big institutions were deinstitutionalised and reintegrated into society. The community living movement was dedicated to this. Ideas like dignity of risk were developed. Dignity of risk means supporting an individual's right to self-determination and to make their own decisions. The 1990s Nothing About Us Without Us movement demanded change on a grand scale. The voices of people with disabilities were suddenly sought after, and so was born the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2006. But the challenge isn't over by any means. All societies continue to treat the person with intellectual disability as the other, the outsider, the inferior, or an object of fear or ridicule, even a tragedy or a gift from God. We have a long way to go. To conclude, let's consider disability as a complex interaction of who we are and how we experience our impairments within the world around us, and how we are affected by all the limitations of the society in which we live.